Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Pastor Joshua. There's so much I want to talk about today. So many issues going on, so many people I'm talking to. Listen, it's 6:06 in the morning. We got our espresso. We're ready for the day. We're firing on all cylinders. So there's an issue I want to talk about that a lot of people are dealing with right now at this current time. What is it? What it could be? It is insecurity issues. Fellas, are you dealing with a very insecure woman right now? Remember, this show is geared towards men. Ladies get a lot out of it, thousands of views. But I want to let you know there are things you can do to handle this situation. We have to remember when it comes to the life commands, the attachment style. Are you dealing with a destructive mentality, a mentality of ungratefulness? But we're going to be talking about insecurity today. And a lot of times that insecurity has to deal with the attachment style, has to deal with certain individuals growing up and not healthily attaching to the mother and father, forming their identity and assimilating those destructive behaviors. For instance, if you always have your woman checking your phone, two issues are going on. Either you're doing something you shouldn't do, or there's an insecurity issue. And so all these traits that were generated from the past childhood, coupled with unsuccessful relationships, whether it's infidelity or abuse, is promoting and activating these insecurities. Why should you have your phone checked every day if you're not doing anything wrong? Are you basically in a relationship with Inspector Gadget? And that can go both ways. If you are, this is going to be a very difficult situation to defeat. And let me tell you why. Because if you look for something hard enough, if you put the effort into looking for something wrong every day, you will find something wrong. And ladies, hold up, give me a second. And you might say, well, if he's not doing anything wrong, he has nothing to worry about. Well, that's not necessarily true. Because if you're going to train your brain to find something wrong, you will find something wrong when something is not wrong. Hey, why are you looking at this woman? I wasn't looking at her. Hey, what do you got on your phone? Nothing. I don't got anything on my phone. Just watching a video. What are you doing? Where are you going? Where were you at 5 minutes? Why didn't you pick up your phone? These issues are real. And gentlemen, your relationship with these insecurity issues is doomed to fail if they're not controlled. So what do? Well, you have to set the boundaries, just like I told you to. And how do you do that? Simply know, you know, we're in a relationship, we're together, we are not going to be personally inspecting the person's life. I always tell the fellows I talk to and counsel, if there's a reason, there's a reason. If there's not, then there's not. And if there's not a reason, there's no need to generate a reason and to cause this conflict within the relationship. And let me give you a signal, gentlemen. Let me really hit you with what I know. If you have dated a woman and she has burned through relationships at light speed, like a UAP, a unidentified aerial phenomena, and just burns through them, and the statement is, well, it's his fault. I pretty much did everything right, and it just doesn't work. So when I counsel individuals, I look for the pattern recognition analysis. And what that means is I look for these statement patterns, and the blame is always on someone else. And so that's an indication of an insecurity issue. A healthy person usually says, yeah, I was in a past relationship. They made their mistakes. I made mine. I recognize my failures. I'm going to change this situation. And this is what I've done to work on myself, to better myself, to enhance and increase the odds of success in our relationship. Another issue, a danger sign is if you're in a relationship and the individual you're with doesn't communicate anything in the past. They shut down, it's kept secretive, it's personal, and so you really don't know what has happened in past relationships. There are men out there are women out there at the same time that pretty much know nothing about their partner's past. I know individuals, and I asked them, how well do you know your wife, your girlfriend? And surprisingly so, a lot of people virtually know nothing about their woman. And that's a dual party fault system. There are women that have responded to their men and said, you know nothing about me. There are men that I've talked to and I've said, I've extrapolated the information, the pattern analysis recognition, and I've said, you don't know anything about your wife, do you? And the men go, I really don't. So you got multiple problems. You got the individual, the male, that doesn't recognize and doesn't understand the woman he's with and knows nothing about her. And then you got the woman that will not even tell the man about her past experiences. Why? Because she doesn't trust men, even though she's in a deep relationship. So that's where the problem begins. Insecurities do not build trust. And the insecurities have to be dealt with before the relationship. And if you bring insecurities into the relationship, you have a lit fuse. And that bomb, that emotional bomb, is ready to go off, because insecurities will cause a psychological, subconscious, aggressive behavior. What do you mean by that, Pastor Joshua? Accusations, 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 faults, faults, faults. And then the woman will try to figure out, why doesn't he understand me? Shouldn't he know better? Shouldn't he know who I am? Shouldn't he guess on what I want, what I need, what needs to fulfill me? Meanwhile, this guy is absolutely clueless. So fellas, insecurity breeds contempt. Contempt breeds anger. Anger breeds hate. And so the problem is, when you ask Pastor Joshua's, people are in relationships, interpersonal contracts not defined, and secondarily, they're not letting the individual know the expectations, and they're bringing all these insecurity issues to the table. And you can tell when a person has a high degree of insecurities, because the day doesn't have an ebb and flow, and the day does not produce joy consistently throughout the whole day. I was talking to an individuals, multiple hundreds of people through my lifetime, and they say, Pastor Joshua, I'm trying to do everything right, these men, and it seems like I can't do anything right. Why is that? And I find myself arguing and fighting and going back and forth, and we got this tension going on. But I tell the individual this: you have to remember something. If you're getting involved in a relationship and it's destructive, and the mentality is destructive, and the life commands and the attachment style is bad, you've entered a world in a delusion that's not your own. And the individual, the delusion, and the environment and the reality is theirs. And so you are entering another person's hemisphere, another person's universe, another person's world. And before you know it, you will go crazy. And I'll give you one of the good signs. I'll give you a great sign. If you're a healthy individual and you had no problems and you jump into a relationship and find yourself in counseling, that's a sign. And counseling is not bad. Therapeutic intervention is good. But if you're a well-rounded human and you're being drugged into a counseling situation, and the woman is manipulating you, or the man is manipulating you, convincing the counselor that you're culpable in the problems in the relationship, when you're predominantly healthy, self-awareness is the most important thing, and you know that, The individual is going to be very, very good at manipulating the counselor, and the counselor only knows what the counselor can extrapolate and what truth is being told. And two people are at each other like this. And then you can leave a counseling situation going, what world am I in? And so the manipulated person will try to pull the bias from the counselor and try to create a bias, I should say. And so before you know it, you're like, how did I end up in this situation? And that's what insecurities produce. And so the trauma develops insecurities. The insecurities get taken into the relationship. They manifest themselves in maladaptive behaviors, maladaptive thoughts, which are negative, setting themselves up for failure, and then taking the partner and dragging them into that world, to that delusion, to that universe, which absolutely destroys a human being. And we got to remember, a big part of the problems of mental illness is psychosomatic, self-created, self-induced, self-destructive, and refusing to be self-aware. So we have to be really careful on who we get involved with, because it can cripple your job. It can cripple your education. The relationship can cripple your dreams, which are interpsychic realities, which is the failure of dreams. And it doesn't necessarily have to be money. Most people's dreams, a big part of that is a healthy, successful relationship in a marriage. Men are simple. Good meal, good conversation, make love once in a while, bills are paid, minimal conflict. Let's move on and get through this life. A lot of times men work 3 jobs for their wives if everything's going good. And so people will intuitively rebel when the situation goes bad. So we have to understand many things when it comes to insecurity in the relationship. And we have to manage these things, because we got to remember, children are affected, men are affected, women are affected. And the problem is, a huge part of women in this society, a big portion, demographic women, have insecurity issues. And a lot of that has to do with a male father being uninvolved, no communicating, no helping the daughter, no strengthening them values. And a lot of men have been complete failures in raising their children. And you know what? That's a hard reality to say, but I'm not going to apologize, because you can always talk to the daughter, rewind time, go back, amend your mistakes, and start building on what you currently have right now, right here, today, in the present. But a lot of individuals in our society is falling apart because they don't choose to accept responsibility. Therefore, they don't have the ability to change. And so you have what I call the relationship, the spiritual matrix. Everybody is so plugged into social media. Everybody is so plugged into their own self aggrandizement and idolization. They're in relationships. And honestly, I'm going to say it like this. They just don't give a damn about their partner, because they're so inundated with what they believe they deserve, or they created and manifested this delusion based off the insecurity issues that they developed from childhood, through burning through these relationships, burning the forest down. And so there has to be a step one. And what is that step one I'm giving you, gentlemen, is situational awareness. Psychological situational awareness is what I like to call it, SSA. And you really have to understand the situation you are. Take a deep breath, step outside your bubble, and analyze. If you're going through these situations, there has to be a reason why. The insecurities are causing chaos. Like I said, if you look for something hard enough, you will find it, because you will develop a mentality and a psychosomatic condition where you believe it's there, and therefore you're living in a delusion that will rip and tear and destroy your life apart. And let me be fair. All of us, to a degree, have some insecurity issues, but the individuals that are healthy work on them, dismantle them, deconstruct them, and deal with them one at a time, periodically, as life goes on. But then you have individuals that have a warehouse of insecurity issues. So you must analyze, you must be self-aware, you must understand, and you must develop a plan to deal with these insecurity issues. You need to process them through therapeutic intervention, through understanding, and you need to alleviate these one by one. The simple way to do that is start knowing who you're with and do not make comparisons, and look at the individual and the healthy aspects and the trustworthiness they projected and demonstrated through the relationship, and start deconstructing the insecurity myth that you have trained the plasticity of the brain to believe that it's real, to understand that it's real in your own head, and to manifest that destruction in your relationship. And you do that by recognition, apology, repenting, restoring, and creating a good life. So, gentlemen, be careful, because if you can't do nothing right, you might have inherited a lot of insecurity issues. Just remember, just because you have issues, insecurity issues, psychological impingements, that's not who you have to be. Until next time, this is Pastor Joshua, and God bless you.